Hi everyone, I'm back with another video from the Season 28 PTR. Today I want to talk about the Bone Spear Necromancer. So you might have seen this in the patch notes, they unnerved Bone Spear almost. So they brought it back to 9000% instead of 6000% on a 6-piece bonus. And they gave it back the triple damage for the simulacrums, which are already doing all the damage to begin with. So your own damage is irrelevant and everything comes from the simulacrums, and now even more so. And this used to be the strongest build in the game by far back in Season 22 and 23, I believe. Or in Season 23 we already had Firebirds, but at least back then it was really powerful. And then they mega nerfed it and it was absolute trash since then. So now we got it almost back to its old power, minus the 4th cube, obviously. So Necromancers did benefit more from this than the other classes back then. But it is a pretty formidable build. So you see here, this is a GR 145, where I was able to almost clear in time with not really like any attempts or so. This was literally one key. 1500 paragons. So this was not really like super crazy to beat this. The damage, especially AoE damage, is very good on this build. Now, if you compare this to Nova Necro, this is still quite a bit worse, because Nova is simply like a much stronger build, much better suited for AoE damage. So it can push higher more easily, and then you just have to figure out how to kill the boss. So this is usually the one big problem that the Nova has, but so does Bone Spear. I gotta say that it's just like back then, the single target damage feels pretty bad, even with all this extra like elite and boss damage that we're getting in Season 28 from the season theme itself, because you just like have way higher damage on bosses compared to most other targets in the Rift. And even so, I need like almost 4 minutes or so to kill the boss here. I believe that the overall damage of Bone Spear is fine. Like, this AoE damage is more than fine. This is definitely better than most other builds in the game. And eventually, I also expect we're gonna get a Nova nerf of, somewhere around 4 or 5 tiers or so. That would actually bring all these builds pretty well in line. So you would have the option to play Nova, you would have the option to play Bone Spear. And you can maybe even do like a Bone Spear Trash Killer under certain circumstances in Foreman, for example. And we would have some pretty balanced meta. But for now, in Season 28, it is no match for Nova. But there is definitely a niche, and that is solo speed farming. Necromancers have been lacking a really good solo speed farming build for a long time. And Bone Spear fills that niche. So this is something I was actually advocating for a while. Just bring back Bone Spear, and I guess here we are. Because Necromancers have everything. They have Nova, they have Ravma as an RGK, they have Rats if you want. So you kind of like, all around really good. But there was no real solo speed farming build besides Ravma. And Ravma doesn't feel very speedy. It's kind of clunky and not many people like to play that. And everyone loved Bone Spear back then. So this was kind of like my reasoning for suggesting such a update a long time ago. And I'm not sure if that was actually heard or if this was coincidence, but here we are. So these runs I was doing here were not super optimized, but you can see it works quite well. I was able to do like 2-minute runs, 2.5-minute runs or so, 112, 114. I tried a bit around with the tiers. This is with the physical Bone Spear. I know some people also like, for example, the cold Bone Spear for speeds. That should work, just equally fine pretty much. It does have, some other tweaks in like how you play it and stuff. But overall, it feels pretty good. You run around, you shoot Bone Spears, stuff dies, and you just need to figure out your resources. So I was doing that with just the passive, the Dark Reaping passive, for example. And I was able to get essence back from kills, and that was okay. But there's other ways to do it, so for example with Devour. So nothing of the setups has really changed, aside from the fact that in Season 28 you are very tanky, and you might not need stuff like Dainty's Binding because of all the extra toughness I have from the season theme. And for example, in my push attempts, I was able to slot in the Stewart's Greaves much more easily. So I was running a Guardian set plus Stewart's Greaves instead of the Dainty's Binding. That felt really good, I gotta say. And combined with the pass ability, you can walk through enemies, compared to CC immunity. That was really nice gameplay actually when I was pushing. I have to say though that in the current version of Bone Spear, it is pretty good. It's probably going to be like some solid A-tier build or so. It will not really be like the meta for anything, so I already described that. and that includes solo farming as well. In solo speed farming, Ravma is most likely still going to produce better results, at least when it comes to XP per hour. You can do faster runs with Bone Spear, so you have the option to, like, you know, gear up faster with it. And it feels much better in my opinion. It's a much more like casual friendly build as well, playing Bone Spear, and it works just fine. So it's not like the top farming build in the game, but it's good. And maybe if there's like another small bump to the build, it would be really awesome. So maybe I could bring it to 10k instead of 9k, just like the original Bone Spear back then. Or more preferably, in my opinion, the single target damage should be buffed a little bit. I gotta say, single target is still as atrocious as always. I already mentioned this. And maybe giving it something like, you know, like a double damage against the first enemy hit or something along those lines would go a long way to make this build feel a lot better. Because you spawn the boss and you really have to like throw these Bone Spears here for minutes and slowly striking them down. And even in speedruns, this is kind of like the one thing that holds you back. When you try to go, you know, a bit higher in the speeds, you just don't have the damage to kill the boss in like one convention cycle, for example. And it feels really bad when you're trying to do like 2.5 minute runs or something like this. So that's my suggestion. Maybe buff the 6 pieces very slightly and mostly add a lot of extra single target. And that's also it for my preview and feedback for the Bone Spear Necromancer. So if you are playing Necromancer, you're going to be all around really good and you have another tool in your kit. And maybe you're going to get another sword tweak here. That's it for this video. Let me know what you think about it and maybe what else you would like to see for the Necromancers. And I'll see you guys next time.